It's fucking good, this. This is quite close to the bacon I'd own if I won the lottery. Take a seat, why don't you? Are we rolling? Are we rolling? Will you take out any really daft bits? It's an attempt to get at the sense of what's looming up behind the person being hurt. It's an attempt to keep the breast meat of the bird moist while the skin is crispy. It's an attempt to express my feelings about a painter I've had a long, unfashionable fixation with. It's an attempt to get art history out of the way and let the painting speak. It's an attempt to hold a catastrophe still so that you can get a proper sniff at it. One of the things I've tried to do is, in prose, is recreate what's happening in the mind of the viewer when you encounter a work of art like this. Because I don't buy the text. I don't connect that to that particularly, because of what's missing from that. And when I try and think about a set of pictures like this, how would I find a prose style that allows me to recreate the speed of thought and what would need to be in it? And I think about a picture like this and I think I am meeting 15-year-old me who was obsessed with these paintings, and what remains in me of that 15-year-old boy, and what have I lost? And when I re-encounter these images, are they the same? Is the Bacon I met when I was 15 in London the same Bacon I'm meeting today in Denmark? And what does it mean for these pictures to have been taken from a place, made in a particular place in Kensington, and abandoned or made with love? These are made with an enormous amount of love, but also a certain degree of violence, a painterly violence. And they mean simultaneously nothing and a huge amount. And they are George Dyer. And what does it mean for George Dyer to come to be lifted from the East End as a kind of petty gangster and a lover of this famous artist, to be put here? What does he feel like behind glass? How does he feel to be worth millions and millions of pounds? He probably quite likes it. How does he feel to be thus abstracted and broken? And I just think about toothbrushes and rags and the kind of physicality and smell of the studio, and it's so odd to look at pictures like this and not smell turpentine and mint and cigarettes and stale champagne and cum and blood and the sounds of London traffic in the 1960s. And what does it mean for a thing to reflect me as I look at it? You know, I look at these pictures and they are behind glass, which is so odd, but it's so important for Bacon, I think, to look at it and see yourself reflected in this, because it is not a face, and I have no face. And I think about the violence of the contemporary world. I think about these images coming out of Gaza at the moment of these children with no heads. And what does it mean to look at an image of a child with no head in the morning and go about your day? Can any of us go about our day? And this is the point of Bacon, really, and it's why 15-year-old me was so struck by them and so hurt by them, and why I think I disavowed him for so long and went off to study cool New York minimalism of the 1970s, because I couldn't bear the me that was so excited and so physically appalled and perplexed by this surface, because this surface is a monstrosity and is such a symptom of its time. And I know now Bacon is the famous painter, and there was a sort of sense of shame in being interested in this famous painter. It felt like such a cliched thing to be interested in this 20th century horror that was so connected to the unspoken, the thing we cannot speak of after the Holocaust. And then you have this raising up or flushing away of Bacon into the hideously inflated sums of the art world, in the sense of these images now being cod Bacon. And in a way, that's what Bacon is. He's kitsch, and he's figurative painting as a kind of acknowledgement of its own kitsch. And then again, there is something, you can't see reproductions of these pictures and understand what they are. You have to come and look at them. And then when you look at them again, you are freshly struck by your body in this space, needing a shit, or dying of cancer, or having been operated on for something having been taken from you that has been similarly taken from poor old fucking George Dyer. And then you think about the way that Bacon robbed the world. He robbed Western art history, and he robbed his friends, and he robbed his... John Deacon took these pictures of Dyer, and it's the first time, allegedly, that he painted from pictures, and as a result, there's a sort of deadness already in these pictures, which is prophetic, of course, because Dyer then died on the loo years after Bacon first painted him on the loo. So you look at these pictures and there's a sort of sense that you're trapped in some kind of sick joke about representation. And then you look at the wall text and it tells you something totally different to that. And you feel like, what on earth is looking at art? What a strange and wonderful thing it is to look at art. And I ask myself then, what's the challenge to write about it? And to what extent will I need to be in that? And to what extent will this institution need to be in, the sea, and the relationship between an institution and the landscape it's put in, and the relationship between the reflection and the thing I'm seeing, and the relationship between the figure and the space upon which it's pinned, upon which we are all pinned.
He is fundamentally a colourist in a childish sense. He draws his simple pictures and he colours around them. At his most sophisticated, he has been granted stickers, red arrows, bulbs, George, wombs, cricket pads, little bits of lonely nonsense architecture, and he has fun sticking these flat gimmicks on his fake figures or behind them. Sometimes he sets aside his juvenile addictions long enough to look harder to face or ponder patiently a colour field, and these are cheap trick successes related to Heels, Habitat, Home Interiors magazine, more than to the great painters he slavishly imitates. Sister, you're giving me a terrible desire to punch something. He treats his heroes as he treats his scientific magazine or a porno or a student's guide to Western art. Just a glance, a cut, a rip, a tip, a borrowed and binned, denied, questioned with no ear for reply, and it is tiring. Year after year, Bacon struggles with his own limitations. It's exhausting to behold such huge quantities of paint being wasted. Enough!